deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, we are pleased to present our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents a Meta-Civical Analysis of Chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Koran, Creation and Fall of Man. But before we get started, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Now let's receive our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey.
Islam, Assalamu alaikum, Vadimakum, Shalom. I want to share with you some of our discussions that we had the last time we shared time, and we talked about many people who become aware of the Moorish movement and the principles of restoration of the lost estate of the Moors, and this would include the culture too. And one of the statements I had made, if someone would want to look at the past, present, and future concerning us, chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran would be a good source of what you would call a short introduction to your past, present, and future, and give you a method or a tool to look at the activities past, present, and future. And you will also see that many people look at the Circle 7 Quran in the concept of, I would say, the average perception of what people have been calling religion. However, it is actually in many aspects actually a cultural and metaphysical book, actually, as well as the science, etc. So I had had a few conversations with a few people along the way in this last month in reference to that comment that I made the last time we were on. And so I chose to go over it a little bit and actually continue part of a conversation I was actually having with a neighbor, a couple of, actually 3 neighbors of mine, who one who brought it up, and a Chinese brother who brought it up, and an Asiatic across the street. And we had quite a little bit of conversation because the principal culture is pretty much universal among Asiatic peoples. And so we had a lot in common as far as that was concerned. But the question was, how does it apply and in our everyday lives? And so I told them, to take a metaphysical analysis of chapter 1, because people's concepts of what they think religion is, number one, we all know for the masses, and this is redundant, that the masses in general don't get religion, they get dogmata, or they get what you call a structured club type philosophy using some scriptures, of choice for the purpose of more or less mind control and social scholar systems. But I prefer to look at all the holy books as philosophical and metaphysical tools, actually, which they actually absolutely are. And when you do a little research, you begin to recognize that most of the priesthood, when using these books in the what you call everyday affairs of people, of man, most of the time their motive is financial and clubism, and not actual spiritual or metaphysical distribution of knowledge, or gnostics knowledge that deals with the divine laws of nature, whereas people would begin to have a cognizance and a capacity to study upon their own and solve many of their own questions and problems on their own. In other words, most of the priesthood do not make the effort to aid or just to share and support the people in such manners that they are liberated from their clubs that are usually financial platforms for the priest, and not really spiritual platforms, because you all know, those of you who are scholars and true religionists know, that spirituality deals only with breath and breathing techniques, more akin to yoga, and then the philosophies of the hermetic principles or the phenomena that operate in the universe, and particularly on Midgard, Earth, are Gnostic philosophies from the ancient Sabean Moors, etc., from which religion comes, and of course cosmology. So I want to share with you chapter 1, and for those of you who have a Circle 7 Quran, pull out your Circle 7 Quran and go into it and recognize the universal character of the philosophies, and also recognize that there's why it's called the creation and fall of man. When you really analyze it, it is actually giving you sort of like a short story form blueprint of our walk on the planet, being man or the manifest, etc., as well as a general insight or intuitive insight on the destiny of man in many ways. And so it would give some supports to people who would take different positions or analysis on our everyday life activities, whether educational, political, what we would call spiritual, religious, etc. And I trust it would be helpful to many who may look at the book only from a surface perspective, and not necessarily look at it with all of the eyes of their senses, And so we're going to share, we're going to take a Meta-Civical analysis of chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran, the creation and fall of man. And some of you take notes, and some of this you can share with other people, and also analyze it yourself and look at it from other perspectives. And I'm sure that you'll get and find so many jewels within the chapter. And so I'll share by reading chapter 1. And this comes from the Holy Koran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, divinely prepared by the noble prophet, noble Drew Ali, by the guiding of his father, God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father, God Allah. And I would want to read also in the back cover of the prepared literature: the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Koran of Mecca for the teaching and instructing of all Moorish Americans, etc. Chapter 1. The creation and fall of man. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject to change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to man, to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul. Gave him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things that are made manifest? Hear ye now, cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplast, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, of water, of earth, and air. Hear now, O everything that is, or was, or evermore to be. For wisdom speaks from out of the highest plane of spirit life. Man is the thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time, for things that are concerned with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are the everlasting of the past into the never-ending days to come. And so is man, the spirit man. But man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah, just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that especial plant. So spirit man, a seed of Allah, held deep within himself the attributes of every part of Allah. Now seeds are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come, but they are not unfolded into life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deep planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was foreordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth his human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast, and in the slower rhythm of the planes of this plane, the essences of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and the all of love are manifest. And these soul attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul. And here he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower still, and then the essences took on a final garb. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal nature was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and tribulation and temptations, manifold, but let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. And when man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served its purpose well, and it will fall, will be no more. Then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light, and there is no failure for the human soul, for Allah's leading on and victory is sure. Man cannot die, the spirit man is one with Allah. While Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have fully opened out and have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore, and it will pass and be no more. And man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and be at one with Allah. Now, when you read chapter 1, look at it from a metaphysical point of view, from a spirit view, and from a metaphysic or Meta-Civical point of view, dealing with the concept of the operations of nature, as most of you who are true religious scholars know, the law of correspondence. And of course, the law of correspondence is represented in the ancient Cananite Moabite nation by Hex Alpha, which you know as the star with the pyramid up and a pyramid down in balance, with a graphic that we would call also the Shield of Solomon or Solomon's seal. Also, some people refer to Hex Alpha as the Star of Dawood or Dawood Star. And that would be your six-pointed star. And so that star, six-pointed star, is the star of Saba, of Africa, or that would be called the Sabean Moabite star or the Coptic star, and also known social politically as the emblem or the insignia of the Moorish nation. And so the six-pointed star and the five-pointed star are both key to the culture of the Sabean Moors, etc., where you get logically Saba, and the knowledge and of course the culture being maintained is called keeping the Sabbath. And of course that would be the cycle systems of measurement, the cycle systems of cosmology, the cycle systems of the measurement of chronology, and of course collectively the energies of the seven major ruling planets in this particular solar systems, and of course the measurement by what we call the sidereal transits of the sun, which we would call the 7 days. And this is where you get essentially the symbol or the graphic that you see called circle 7. And so Moors measure time by cycles. And of course, when you're dealing with the cycles or what we call the pathways on the transits of the major planets behind the sun, and of course the sun's transit around another sun that you do not see, we call that, of course, all cycles. And much of the culture has to do with the ephemerides, measurement, calculations, and registry for the point of reference of those planetary movements, particularly the sun and those cycles, etc. So all of that collectively together is circle 7, and not just the image of the graphics that you see circle 7. And when you see the 4 openings of the circle 7, and with the circle without the 7 in it as a graphic, it would be called a nimbus. And dealing with the knowledge and the philosophies of the ancient ones, it would usually be symbolically set as a crown on the head, the sun crown, etc. And from a geographical, social, philosophical, and then a symbolic structural form, then you would see the fez with its 4 circles, 4 sets of 3 circles at the top of the crown of the fez, with the umbilical cord and the cord coming out of it, and of course the ball of mud called earth, and with all the strands symbolizing with a proper tassel 360 strands, and then you have the strands being loosely or able to evolve or revolve around the crown, which would be circular, of the fez. And this is symbolically the crown of the sun, or corona sol, also symbolic of the universe. And of course, the head that you put the fez on has 7 openings, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth in that circle. And so with the head having 7 chambers. And so you also deal with the senses of the body for the experience of man in the physical form. And so you have your 5 senses, and then you have your 6th and 7th sense, would be called insight and intuition. And collectively, together, they would formulate what you would call a single seeing, or what you would call a divine seeing. And this is where your philosophies of the intuitive mind relative to griots, seers, prophets, etc., psychics, intuitives, that's what that is representative of symbolically. And of course, those are natural functions of humanity. But for the reality of it, of our condition, those senses have been pretty much artificially suppressed by the priesthood, so that man might have some experiences here in the physical plane. Also, on the problematic side, you've had the priesthood being using that knowledge negatively and locking the masses out of the knowledge in general. And this is where you get the structures and the formulations of your secret societies. And of course, with all the darkness that many of the priesthood have been entertaining themselves with for quite some time, have really made Midgard quite an uncomfortable place to be. When you look at some of the scriptures and the projections of the enlightened mothers, or what you would call, some would call them angelic women, who would bring men and women at different times and cycles to help ease the pain and the miseries of humanity. The people would call them prophets. And some who would look at it from another philosophical position would call them champions. However, one of the things that has always been the messages from all of those who have been akin or willing to accept their intuitive mind and actually look at these things, know that those capacities demonstrated by all those that we call seers, griots, intuitives, and prophets, is the capacities and the nature of all humans, period. It's in them already. However, due to the fact that the priesthood, much of the priesthood at Midgard have been dirty and very selfish, the masses in general have not been aware of these things about themselves. And also, many of them have succumbed to the dogmatic psycho systems set up by the priesthood so that they could make for themselves a comfortable and profitable platform of governing on the earth. This would be for those who have been used to using the Bible as a reference. You would go to Thessalonians 1 and 2, and these are the priests who have claimed themselves as being God. And this is pretty much what's been going on the planet. But also know that much of the work of Prophet Noble Ali has been to bring remedy to humanity, to begin much of this necessary ongoing work of helping to uplift fallen humanity. And chapter 1, if you'll notice, those who have the circle 7 Korans will notice that chapter 1 of the circle 7 Koran is the only chapter that is not enumerated. For those who have insight, then that would be obvious, because the message begins with the first chapter and also in many ways ends with the first chapter. And many of the other chapters are certainly helpful philosophically and as far as our development is concerned. But I emphasize chapter 1 because it gives you past, present, and future. And I noticed that over the years, talking to different people, many people haven't noticed that. So I just brought that to your attention. And it's called Creation and Fall of Man. But when you look at it, it's talking about man's preset experience here at Midgard, etc., and the potential of the outcome, etc. And so that would be a source for both strength and trust in the principles of your ancient mothers and fathers, in that they were not totally without what you would call psychic weapons or psychic knowledge of how things operate. And people who are not aware of the culture logically many of them would become forlorn and think or that they had no remedies to the everyday lives or that they suffer at Midgard due to the priesthood, particularly the priesthood who have veiled themselves as politicians, who have been really extremely demonic, etc., while pretending to be peacemakers, peace bringers, peacekeepers, etc., which is pretty much opposite of what they actually been doing. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention with chapter 1, so that many of you who happen to have Circle 7 don't get caught in the dogmatic, spooky perspective that's often cast by many people who really haven't studied well the literature shared with us by our illustrious prophet, as well as many who have systematically misrepresented the prophet for their own personal gain, etc. So you can look beyond that and recognize that it's universal in its character. And also recognize, also I want to bring this to your attention because a lot of people miss this in the chapter, because as those who have been studying and who really have been studying the culture or the Sabean culture know that the root foundations of religions on the planet are cosmological in their character. And of course, for children, we already know, we've discussed multiple times the anthropomorphic presentment for the purpose of teaching children. And however, what you find is, and this is redundant, that many of the priesthood have maintained the anthropomorphic angle and kept the people actually stagnated for their own personal purposes. And this has much to do with helping to uplift fallen humanity by making them aware of the anthropomorphic angle, not for the point of rejecting it, but for the point of comprehending that it was a tool for children, not for adults. So what we would call adults. So when you become more mature about the realities of life, you would be better able and willing to look at the workings of nature realistically and pragmatically and adjust your life accordingly and responsibly. This would be demonstrated with the statement where it says, when I was a child. And how would you make that statement so many times, Dr. Naila, where it would make the statement, when I was a child, I thought as a child, did the things that children do.
Understood as a child.
Yes.
But when I became, a man or mature, I put away childish things.
Yes, and that principle, what you discover, is repeated many times, but has not been the practice, because the people had not been made aware that has to do with dismissing the anthropomorphic angle of instructing, and then taking the people to the science. So when people talk about Moorish science, very often you won't see them being explained to them that Moorish science is cosmology and the workings of nature. It is metaphysical. As a matter of fact, Noble Ali was referred to as the great Egyptian metaphysician. That's a fact, and they also refer to him as Professor Drew. That's no secret. But what I recognize, unfortunately, with many people who are cognate of Noble Ali's teachings and philosophies, many people have not been, and they have sometimes pigeonholed him in the dogmatic concept, which is not to their advantage. If they would study much that he has shared with us, they would take a totally different view and recognize the great sacrifices and the great length by which he took at personal risk to bring a lot of this information to the people. And ultimately, like many of the prophets before him, was sacrificed, or assassinated. However, those many of the people have taken the teachings and actually taking them out, or instructed people in such manners to bring them back to the Sabean culture, so that they could apply the knowledge as opposed to just repeating things because they heard somebody say things. And of course, those who have less than genuine intent for helping the people would immediately get upset because they really don't want humanity liberated. They don't want humanity to recognize their own capacities. And so when you even look at the questionnaire that the prophet has prepared for the people, where he says, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? And the response is, the answer is by teaching them to be themselves. And logically, if the Moors aren't availed on some of the culture of the ancient Sabean Moors, the great Gnostics, who are the founders of religion, they hear those phrases and those terms. They hear a lot of people in all the nations of the earth talking about, the ancient Gnostics being the founders of religion, etc., but not give them the Gnostic philosophies by which to measure all of the different religious so-called systems that came out of it, and therefore get caught up in the schism operations of the priesthood, where they have practiced keeping people divided against each other, angry at each other, and competing with their different versions of gods, etc., dealing with the different names that have been used by the different people from the different family groups in different linguistic forms, but at the same time admitting that we have source, or what you call common source, etc. And so chapter 1 will help a lot of people to dispel the misconceptions that the Koran in its principle is not universal, because in fact it absolutely is. And it was prepared, the prophet prepared it, because he said, as he said, this knowledge has always been around. It's been held back from the Asiatics of North America. And what he did, he prepared chosen text for our people to aid particularly the Moors of North America, who have been pretty much the deepest into darkness relative to social, economic, political, educational, in every walk of life. Yet they are the direct descendants of those ancient Sabean Moors, etc. So that's one of the motivations of me sharing chapter 1. Also, because as I made the comment earlier, I brought that up in our last visit when you shared with us here at the House of Reawakening Minds the last time, the past, present, and the future being in chapter 1, although it's referred to as the creation and fall of man. There were some other things that we were talking about too, Dr. Naila, earlier concerning that, and if you had any comments on that you wanted to share, do so.
I'm just going to see if there are any questions or anything.
Good. And one of the things I also did, years ago, when I got the quote off Circle 7 Quran, because years ago, I had gotten a copy from Tarik Bey, Prime Minister Tarik Bey, who's, is Prime Minister now. Years ago, she shared hers with me. And just before I'd gotten that, when I visited, when I used to do contracting on a regular basis, a brother shared with me some of the literature from CMB registered in the Library of Congress, which I knew of, and I got some of the original text, etc. It was very interesting. Of course, as soon as I saw it, I just fell right into it, because it's harmonic with your nature. If you're harmonic with nature, it falls right in, almost like those old pair of loafers type thing. So and I thought I'd share that with you all, because I see as people talk, I see a lot of times people get confused, and I think even over the years, one of the reasons why I've always more or less leaned towards looking at scripture from a metaphysical point of view is because I find that so many people are still lost in the anthropomorphic view. So that's always been an angle that I've used to try to dissuade people from getting buried into the schismata that's designed by the priesthood with the anthropomorphic view as a mind control tool, which is why you don't see me pumping, that religious mentality, not because I'm not religious, because what they've been pumping in the name of religion wasn't religion, it was mind control. And so I wanted to share chapter 1 with you because if a being has an open mind, you can see it because it's even telling you what the culture is. It's literally telling you what the culture is. And it's telling you the fundamentals, operations of the physical man and the soul man, so that your concepts of what you'll call staged or just above and below correspondence, as you know, the rule in phenomena that operates on the earth, the rule of correspondence in Hermetic law is as above, so below. So as above, so below. So you have your trinity up and your trinity down in balance, which is hex alpha. And of course, you know there's a philosophy concerning that too. And those of you who know the culture know that these people, particularly in North America, Asiatic African descent, who have been suffering multiple levels of abuse on, you name the area of social society, and they have suffered it. However, many of them don't know that they're descendants of the ancient Sabians. They'll hear the word people saying Jew all the time, Hebrew and Jew, in reference to Saba, but they won't tell you it's Saba, and they won't tell you that Hebrew and Jew is a cover up for the Sabean Moors, etc. So, and many of the people who study and study well, who already know that that Islam as a particular point of view is just simply a Coptic sect of Coptic Christianity of the ancient Sabean Moors. And so even people's concept of Islam and Christianity, for the most part, has been actually misrepresented by many people on many fronts. So once in a while, I'll mention that to people so they don't get caught up in that schism operations of thinking that they're more special than someone else, or that someone else is more special than they are. Because all of it has one root that has the same root, so that you don't get caught in the schisms. And also, this is comprehend why the prophet always said to the Moors, you must learn to love instead of hate, because one of the tools of the priesthood has always been keeping people challenging each other and rejecting each other based on whether they're Muslim, claim to be Muslim, Christian, Jew, or Confucius, etc. And for those who studied, you'll notice that he has all of that on your nationality card, because all of it is Sabean culture, because that's the truth. So I wanted to bring chapter 1 up to you to remove that argument that you see many people have, or create those schisms and divisionisms based on their misconceptions of the Circle 7 Quran and the misconceptions of even some of the angles on how we've been sharing the information and why certain angles we've used over the years to share this information, contrary to the anthropomorphic angle. It's not a rejection of people who are locked into the anthropomorphic angle. It is just to explain to them what it is, and then show you some proof within the Circle 7 Quran for those who have been only looking at it from an anthropomorphic perspective. It is not limited to that. Let's know that.
Question. Alan Cartwright asks, says, connecting the dots. Is that the reason why, or at least one of the reasons, the dark priesthood are hostile towards children, because they know somewhere, somehow, a champion can be summoned?
Absolutely correct. Glad you were using your insight. You know when you answered. You knew when you asked it, but I'm glad that you asked the question to share for many who, one, in their heart know that to be true, but don't have the courage to ask that question or even to make that statement. And it's absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Just two things, because many of the children, and particularly now, and this is particular for this energy time now, and this goes with the planes of life that you see mentioned in the Quran. So the planes of life are actually dimensions. So the cognizance of the human, as the human evolves within the energies of the cycles of the sun and the moon, lot of these centuries will develop just like a flower. That's why it gives you the demonstration of the workings of nature in chapter 1. And he wants to shut them down before they awaken, because many of them are champions being brought to solve some of the problems at Midgard. And so this is why they want to kill them off. As a matter of fact, for many of you who probably never put it together, that's what the operations of Roe versus Wade was actually about. That was set up by the priesthood so they could kill off the children under the guise of helping women. And of course, many women who really haven't been using their divine mind fell for it and helped in the genociding of their own children, who also have been used for food. That's another part of the problems that we're dealing with today. And that's the truth. Thank you for that question and statement.
Let's see if there's no more comments.
And I'm appreciative that some of the people are beginning to demonstrate the courage to really ask the uncomfortable questions and make the uncomfortable truth statements that are necessary for helping to uplift fallen humanity. Thank you for that.
So, Jacaro Bilcaro asks, when is Kamala going to become pastor of the dead U.S. corporation?
She's already been that.
That's what someone else says. It's safe to assume she already is.
Yes. And that whole platform, while we discuss those platforms are really marking time for them and also distraction. However, still a good analysis, because that which is above is below. And so they're doing what you call a minor puppet show of what's taking place in the ethereal world. And that's the truth.
Let's talk a little bit about, we were watching yesterday a press conference in it's supposed to be taking place in Geneva, and all of the inconsistencies of the press conference with the so-called head of the corporation that we saw in the place that this press conference was being held. I mean, and you pointed out.
Oh yeah. Oh, the background.
Not only did we realize it was probably green screen, a video green screen back, but there were so many inconsistencies in what was running, that you would never see with a person of his caliber. Those
it's part of the puppet show
breaches, if you will, in security, if it actually was happening.
Part of the puppet show. And most of you who respect your divine mind and who have been using your insight and your intuit principles of your 7 Hermetic laws already knew, which is why we've told you like 3 years ago, basically Trump was assigned. And those who could see it then and see it now. What you see, what we told you then is manifesting now. And he himself is still a figurehead.
At some level. Another question. Want to know what you think about the Juneteenth ritual?
Another diversion and distraction. Most everything that they have presented to pacify our people, to think they're giving them something or that they're honoring them in any kind of manner, is really to distract us. And usually when they have big affairs like that, particularly when they're putting people together, in the background, there's usually some heavy human trafficking activity taking place. And that's the real truth.
Now, that they
and if they really wanted to help the people, they would start off telling them the truth. Tell them about the land, the truth about the land, the truth about their corporation and their operations is a private corporation owned by the Jesuits, operated through the Roman Curia, controlled jurisdictionally by the members of the crown, known as the Circle Church and Chancery, which is your entire bar association members who are foot soldiers for the Bishopric of Rome, and operating with the artificial construct of the perpetrating, impersonating queen in their Trinity operation to turn everything that was Saba, pardon me, into a dark ritual. And actually at the same time doing opposite absolute of what they project. And this is why we've been telling people for years, everything that they do, generally look at the fact that they're projecting. Keep that in mind. And whenever you're measuring what they do, always think impersonation, perpetration, de facto, semblance, simulacrum, prima facie, fakery, mockery, mummers, etc. That's how they operate. And for the most part, if you keep that in mind as a measurement, you can mostly see through everything that they're doing even before they start to do it.
Let's see, another question. Here's a comment. Mercedes Dickinson said the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian are closed.
Well, what does that tell you? The seat of the Roman goddess at the Maghreb, or the throne of the darkness pretending to be light, has been for the most part and is still being dismantled, which we told you about 4 years ago. Because remember, those of you who know about the Organic Act of Congress 1871, and of course the coup d'etat that took place 10 years before, has to do with much of the root foundation of the politics that has been taking place since the 1800s, perpetrated at North America and then projected out upon the rest of the civilized world. And so what you see, it's being dismantled, which we told you was happening under Trump.
Okay. Kiba Omar says, what is the remedy or / plan to quote unquote unite the various tribes?
The various tribes will be united. We've said this for years, and I'm going to repeat what I've said. The Moors will come together not because men and women have not been sacrificing their personal lives to try to waken them up or to try to share truths with them. They will not come together for a lack of actual knowledge altogether. They're going to come together out of pain, because the hybrid European, the impersonator, the fakery, the fake Jew will show them everything they need to know, because they're going to take every damn thing from you till you turn your hearts back to your ancient mothers and fathers and stop pretending that you all don't know your Moors. There it is. That's simple.
But Grand Sheik, there's so many
remedies. Let me come back with this.
Yeah, but there's so many factions. Yeah, but there's so many factions that are coming up with, I got the truth. No, I have the truth. No, we have the truth.
Isn't that part of the game?
They don't have the truth. But everybody has a piece of.
Isn't that part of the game? What is it one thing that we've always told the people? Have we ever told the people that we had all the answers, or did we always tell the people to trust themselves? And we give them established truths, established documents, established facts to encourage them to start rejecting the priesthood and the agencies that they thought was legitimate government, so that they would recognize for themselves that these demons and these powers and these fakers around them had no power except what you keep giving them. So you've been feeding them the energy to create weapons to destroy yourselves. So when you stop feeding the fake platforms, the fake religions, the fake philosophers, the fake leader guys, etc., they have no power because they're all parasitic. We told you multiple times that they're all parasites. So if you stop feeding the vampire, you start wearing turtleneck sweaters, you can walk in most caves and you come out pretty cool. Just don't wear low neck sweaters when you go in the cave in the darkness with these people. After a while, Vampy gets kind of weak when he don't have plasma. They don't call exploiters vampires for nothing. If you look in the dictionary, vampirism and exploitation, vampirism is a synonym of exploiter. That's why they're also referred to as bloodsuckers. And when you think that they haven't been bloodsuckers, you've underestimated them. And I think now many people around the world are beginning to recognize that that's not a metaphorical statement, but it has been actually both metaphorical and literal. This is the kind of pain that it's going to take to wake up humanity, because they keep believing the priesthood, and the priesthood, the collective body of priesthood, has been the demon, has been the Satan. Nobody wanted to accept that when we've been telling them this for years about the full pit. They defended them. You're going to find out a lot of people that you've trusted in the name of the Lord, like we always like to say. Get your heads together and, drink a lot of good water, eat good food, because you're going to have to handle a lot of ugly that's going to be exposed to you on multiple levels. But we don't have to do it because we don't want to deal with that energy. We'll let the hybrid European do it. Like the prophet said, I'm going to make the European tell you the truth. So pay attention to your radios and to your televisions, all these different levels of social media, and they will tell you everything except some of the most important parts, which you're going to have to figure out yourselves. But if you think it's going to be hidden, no, it's not. However, the more you comprehend about what's really going on, the more you can stay out of the way of the herd as they run over a cliff. Don't follow the herd. That's my advice to you.
I want people to come back. Go back and see if they're okay. LY, it says, wasn't sure if this was already covered, but why is the number 7 so significant to Moorish science?
Because it is more science. But when you're talking about 7, you're talking about this particular solar system. So it's Moorish science just happens to be the fact that it's Moorish culture, but it actually involves all humanity. So don't look at it as being separate just because someone says a Muslim, Christian, Jew, Buddhist, or atheist. It matters not. If you're in physicality in this atmosphere at Midgard, Circle 7 is the Earth culture. Whether or not beings are aware of that, or cognitively, is another issue. And so you're dealing with the 7 ruling planets of this particular solar system, and it has more to do with also planets that you call the human have actually been on. Now that's the truth. The concept that humanity only dwells at Midgard is a misconception. These are other discomforting things to the average person who really doesn't know the walk of man that's going to be exposed to you in the very near future. And so a lot of what we would consider or what you're being told is new technology is actually old technology. And for the most part, a lot of it will be brought back to you because we have to clean up, and they can't continue to play these games of suppression by necessity of development. And of course, because the energy of the transits of the sun and the transits of these 7 planets within and through the Futon belt. So do some research on the Futon belt. The energy that's hitting the planet now will not allow the darkness to continue anyway. So it's not because of someone's philosophy merely, or our discomfort, or we're angry that the demons did this or the demons did the other thing. The deal of it is that their BS Gedorf can't exist under the Aquarian energy lights anyway. So you're talking about the forces of nature. So when you're talking about Circle 7, you're talking about the 7 senses, but they only told you about 5. We're not arguing that. We told you about the other 2. Not that you didn't know it. We're just bringing it together. So look at the chamber of the head, etc., because it's going to come to you anyway. So people with big mouths like me won't even matter because it's going to come to you by nature, and that's the truth. So I'm giving you a little bit, but you'll recognize it on your own values now. And it's sort of like some of the things we talk about is sometimes we get boring doing it because it's sort of like, like you're talking about a coming storm, and now you're still having a conversation and you're in the storm. Well, we're in the storm. And it's sort of like that. So we're trying to find different angles to wake up the few who aren't woke because of love and because we want to make things better for all of us. Because what we project for the rest of those who are less asleep, we project for ourselves. So even love, in a way, while selfless, is also selfish. So if you love others as you love yourself, it's because we all are one. And so when you look at even the closeout of the Koran, it says what? This is the uniting of Allah. This is the uniting of the Holy Koran of Mecca. But the Holy Koran is not just the book. The Holy Koran is the reading, the knowledge. It is the collective. Even that's a metaphor, you see. It is the whole of things, actually. And this is, again, why a lot of times so that people will take a less spooky view or not a view that's loaded with biases. We would always tell them, if you want to have really concepts of it, study cosmology, study Kabbalion, which is derived from Sabean culture, directly derived from Gnostic philosophy, because that's what it really is.
Okay, here's an interesting question. What is the link of summer solstice to Father's Day? If that.
Well, now you would be talking, that would be anthropomorphic in its angle, talking about the sun. And so the sun is also the father. So you're really talking about mother, governed by the moon, who's the gateway, who brings the physical body. And you're talking about the projective energies of the sun. And this is like when you're looking at cosmology, they would give the sun what you would call a masculine energy or projection, just like you have, although all things in nature have masculine and feminine energy. And so the sun is symbolically as he. This is why the sun, or the great sun, is referred to as he, and the moon is referred to as she. Is given a gender. So even when you look in your Hermetic law, you're dealing with the law of gender. So you're talking about the projection and the positive and the negative, the projective and the recessive, the receiving and the giving, etc. The balance, the yin and the yang. That's all that means. And so when you're dealing with the energy of the summer solstice, the sun coming in or being at the part of the earth where it is most active, then that, of course, deals with Ptah, Peter or father. That's what it means. That's all. It's only a metaphorical angle on the workings of nature. Back to cosmology. And of course, those of you who know, when you look at even the word cosmo in cosmology, cosmos means universe. So who is Allah? Allah, the follower of the universe. Allah is the follower of the universe. We know that Allah is a feminine name. So you're dealing with projection and energy and gestation and projection. So you're looking at the workings of nature. And so you have the crescent and the star, which is also called the cosmos. You see how the storyline is? And so when people look at it just from an anthropomorphic, they're not looking necessarily as the cosmological nature or the Ephemerides's angle. And people need to know about both of them so they can look at it more maturely and more responsibly, and comprehend that for children, we'll show them, a brother on a camel, which means a ship of the desert, and then you'll see a pyramid in the background, and then you'll see the crescent and the star in the sky, and they'll say, "Oh, the Star of Bethlehem," etc. So, but adult will look at a chart and look at the angles of the different planets, and also from a bishop point of view, the positions of the different planets in aid or support of the different constellations at certain cycles of time. So there you got your bishops, and there you have what? Your cardinal points. So your cardinal in the great circle, because church means circle. So the great cardinals would be at your primal nodal points, your north node, south node, east and west. There you go. And so you take it out of its anthropomorphic, which is for children, take it into its cosmological, and now you're grown up. Now, you talk about Santa Claus, but you already know Santa Claus is the Big Dipper. It's like that. You take it seriously, not serious, really. And of course, intelligently, you guide your life according to those energies. The same way, like, say, for instance, like, because I'm very hot-blooded, right? So, but I actually never liked, like skin out type stuff like that, except when I want to get some sun, get some vitamin D. And so if I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, stuff like that, I'll get really hot. In the same way, I wouldn't think about wearing a long sleeve shirt and a coat and putting on a wool scarf and putting on, a pulley. Now in this weather, same way I wouldn't do the opposite like this in the winter. So you look at it like that. Let's keep it simple. Study the workings of nature. Look at it put in an anthropomorphical story for children. Then look in the calculations of the energy outputs, the waves, the ups and the downs of what you call the cosmic waves, and a mathematical Ephemerides's calculation of that for the purpose of agriculture, for feeding, for the purpose of traveling, dealing with your weather systems, the exposure of certain elements and food stocks around the planet in different time zones or locale zones, in different nodal points, in different life forms that may grow either in acidic soils or alkaline soils based on the operations of the elements in nature. There is religion. That would be in the Ephemerides's form. So when you look at the Bible, the Koran, the different holy books, the Torah, etc., the Uaspi, the different books. Also, remember, all of them have a cosmological construct. And and this is really interesting, when you already know that the priest can't play you anymore. And this is why they really get upset when we share this information with people, because it kills all their clubisms. It kills all of their Jesus funding that they've been spending with Birth for Butt at the Bahamas every year. See, and this goes for all of them, not some of them, all of them. Because once you recognize, like they say, God's everywhere, and he makes all your sandwiches, and he loves everybody, he give you a peanut butter sandwich, and when you really understand that we come together in organized bodies, politic, because we're social beings. But the reality, you don't need to go someplace to find Allah. Duh. First, you come through a womb. Duh. And then you on earth. Duh. Then the air is here. It's everywhere. However, because we're social beings and we construct organizations and clubs and institutions for the purpose of supporting, our civilizations and preserving knowledge and stuff like that. However, don't let it become so big that it makes you forget the simplicities of life. And that's the truth. And what the priesthood has done is made people forget the simplicity of life and made their lives complex. And they've actually um, um, made the masses into serfs to serve them, using God, Jesus, Allah, whatever versions of their perceptions of what they call divine source, um, as a purpose, not really helping humanity, but actually to rape humanity. So we're not condemning people at all for being religious in the misconceptions that they have, but we're more concerned with liberating people from the misconceptions promoted by the priesthood in behind the names of divine, etc., that actually have nothing to do with a lot of the corruption that the priesthood has created. And the fact that the masses keep losing should be your message. If you were so right, how come we keep losing?
Question. Thomas Marie said, is it true that presidents are chosen when they were younger and they knew years before Trump was president that he would be?
Well, Trump was requested, to be honest with you. If you want to look at Trump, if I would make an analysis of Donald Trump, I would look at his relationship to his father and his father's relationship to both Tesla and the takedown of Tesla by the Circle Church and Chancery members who run some of what you call your three-letter organizations of the popes of Rome that have been operating in North America that you're familiar with. Look at that from that perspective. But Trump, on another level, was requested by generals and admirals who have been deposed under the, say, maybe all of the administrations operating of the praetors, all the praetor organizations, because remember, presidents are praetors, operating since Kennedy's assassination, were those who are still living. Many of those who are still living actually requested Trump to run. Trump didn't run on his own initiative. And there's a lot more that can be told. Some things are not said because the dark priesthood is still operative on many levels, including shutting down communications. That's being dealt with too. However, so Trump didn't come up and say, oh, I want to be president. He was requested. So keep that in mind. So Trump is a face for other faces that you do not see. However, if you use your intuitive mind, you can read all of them for the most part.
So was that though a yes though in terms of the presidents in general?
Oh yes, and most of the praetors, who have been holding that praetor office, in some ways are related. You know, bloodline. That would include Hitler's daughter,
Merkel.
Yeah, Hitler's daughter who birthed Obama.
Oh, the other one.
Oh yeah, the other one. But it doesn't mean that some of them weren't trying to send messages or weren't trying to help, because some of them were. However, people need to understand that they are all praetors. They're all assigned. They're all prepared. They have one main, and they usually have a couple of backups in case of contingencies that were not necessarily calculated. But for the most part, all of them are put in place. And there's no such thing, and never has been anything in the nature of quote unquote free elections operating at North America. Never. Never, 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 never. This is another reason why the divine national movement is necessary, and also to help people start using their intuitive mind so that they can start governing their own lives and get rid of the demon operations that have been governing on not even beyond the U.S. corporation operations and the secret treaty of Verona and all of the other operations in Austria and Switzerland that have been going on in the name of country, when in fact their operations have always been dismantling nations, not helping nations. They've been going to and fro the earth, devouring nations. That's why they don't teach nationality. You hear in the Bible and the Koran, you hear always preachers talking about, and God raised up nations, and he said, this is my nation. And then there'll be nations against nations. But you won't see them teaching nationality, do you? Well, there's green people over here, and then the purple people over there, and then the light-skinned green, purple, orange, white. Doesn't matter what color you are, people. They've been playing a game on these people for so many generations that most of the people, their brains have been stagnated. And this is, again, why the illustrious prophet Novadrali set up the divine and national movement. He said religious and national movement. He said divine and national movement. He said learn the truth about your nationality and your birthrights. He said the half has not been told. If I told you everything, you go back to sleep. But guess what happens when you really start studying? We thought we've been had. Had is an understatement. And this is, again, why when you get into this information, what people choose to call Moorish science is really the walk of humanity. That would be, to be more blunt, that would be more proper. It makes a lot of people angry. Why? Because the vampires have been living off the virtues of humanity for quite some time, and knowledge and enlightenment will end it. That's why people are upset. This is why they will go through all the trouble, pay trolls, do everything they can, try to block this information. And this is another reason why we always try to, while sharing, try to keep it down to earth with the people so they don't get caught up in this spookiness, like, oh, wow, this is really so deep. It's not deep. It's very, very simple. It's very simple. You've been had by the priesthood. Get over it. And don't get angry, get wise.
Okay.
You find out that, I thought that was his dentures. No, he's a vampire. Duh. They like blood. Yes, they do. Literally, fiscally, metaphorically, and politically. They are vampires. Like for real, for real, for real.
Jakari Bill Bacaro asks, dumb diverses happened on 6/18/1493. Can you address that anniversary today? They said they would kill all the Saracens, and they are doing it too.
Of course, the Saracens is really another cover word for the Moors. What you see them doing, and this is why it's necessary for them to.
First of all, what was dumb diverses?
Dumb diverses is one of the major bullas of the Church of Rome, i.e. the Roman bulla. So you're dealing with Intercatera Divina, Dumb diverses, Romanus Pontifex, etc., Unum Sanctum, which is the major killer, as an example. And all of these are the major church bullas of Rome that have been used against the Asiatic nation, i.e., what you know as Africa and Asia, etc., which is also described not exactly correctly as allegedly the hybrid European hegemony, also tagged as white supremacy. All of these are for the most part, are both misnomers and misrepresentations. However, essentially, that is the operations of Unum Sanctum, which is a cover for all of them, including Dom Diversis, etc. So whether they're
are
dealing
these
with
like decrees or
yes, they are, because you got to remember, the Pope of Rome takes the place of all things that represent light, all things that represent justice. This is why he's referred to as the vicar, or the vicar, meaning that it's a substitute for justice, it's a substitute for light, it's a substitute for Jesus, it's a substitute for all the prophets, it's a substitute for God. Thus, he is God at Midgard. And therefore, they take the position that they own the souls and the lives, physical and the soul of man, etc. Another reason I went to chapter 1, so you can look at that, so you can look at some keys that the prophet left for us to battle back on, so that many of you don't give up the fight, etc. But understand, essentially, in layman's terms, the Pope and the Roman Curia members, being soldiers for the popes of Rome and the bishopric, claim to be God of this world, God of this earth, and therefore claiming to own both the bodies and the souls of men, which is why all marriage certificates and birth certificates are actually bank bonds, etc. That's why. It's not because those instruments just happen to be what they are. That's why they are what they are, because they have claimed the lives and the souls of men. This is the reason why the corporate states always operatively go into people's estates, etc., and steal all of their finance and then put the heirs in debt, etc. As an example, when you see people, and particularly people of Asiatic African descent, as they pass form or transform, you notice that our communities generally stay pretty poor. It's because the agents of the corporate state always steals their estates so that there's no inheritance. If there's an inheritance, they will put a feudal tax upon the heirs, so that the heirs not only don't have an estate, but they're so burdened with a tithe that they have to pay the corporate state, thinking that the corporate state is their government, and it's actually Roman Curia members, in order to enforce Dum Diversus. Because that's what that is. And because we're saying it, don't think that the Revs don't know this, and that includes every one of your marching, praying, civil rights leader guys, all of whom do some research, were 32 and 33 degree Masons, and in secret had a Moorish fez, pretending they don't know that these people are Moors, while collecting their kickbacks set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson, back to Trump an issue, that after they assassinated Kennedy, for trying to bring constitutional principles back to bear after the coup d'etat, because all this stuff is absolutely connected. And so when you see them, making these young sisters get diabetes, strokes, and everything, they go deal with the pharmaceuticals because they got a minor cold, or they hurt their knee or something like that, and they secretly sterilize them or give them viruses, etc. Yes, they do. That's what they've been doing. All of that is Dum Diversus. Tuskegee experiment, Dum Diversus. AIDS, Dum Diversus. Corona, Dum Diversus. That's what it is. Yes, you're correct. However, keep this in mind. As the people begin to see the light, or they begin to wake up to the energies of particularly being projected by Uranus, by the electrical energy of Uranus, pay attention to Uranus. I know we talk about Saturn. Yes, we do. Pay attention to Uranus. And keep in mind the electrical energy that Uranus is sending on this planet now. And if these demons can stand that electrical energy, more power to them. I doubt if they can stand it. The people will be waking up Not because necessarily, not because we can aid, but we can't give because it's all given from divine source anyway. That we call all universal law, Allah, etc. They're going to wake up anyway. Our mission of work is to try to make things a little bit more comfortable. That we need not see this suffering of humanity to the depths that it is. And much of it is because the people are just not aware. However, again, and I'm saying this again, the electrical charge that the planet that's coming from the planet Uranus that's charging on this planet, everything and anyone, whether it's institution, whether it's being in the flesh, whether it's visitor from off world, it pulls off all masks. No mask, no personality can hide anything anymore. So the wake up is both by help of those who would want to help, but it's also commanded by Uranus. That's part of Uranus's assignment. And I think a lot of times people are distracted by the other energies. Not that you shouldn't, not that you don't pay attention to them, but for those who would want to know a little bit more, pay attention to Uranus. Because I think because a lot of people are looking at the overall charts of people and the overall geographical charts and horoscopes that are made, not disrespecting or not that they're ignoring Uranus, but they're kind of overlooking at this projected energy that's coming from Uranus. And maybe that's kind of well because they're getting knocked upside the left side they ain't paid attention to because they're so very, how like it's sort of, it's sort of like in as an example in a game of sports. Although we know sports are generally put there to distract people, where you have a star player, he or she is a star player on the team doing something, and then they bring another star player in too. And while they're trying to block one, the other one hits them, and vice versa. This is what's happening with Uranus and Saturn relative to energy projection and cashing all D checks right now on the planet. So look at that from a metaphorical point of view, then look at the physicality and the manifestation of the civic activity that's taking place in the political platform. So sit back and watch the movie.
John Winbay says, what are your thoughts on North America having two countries, Canada and the United States? We have more than two.
Let's say this. When you really know what's going on, the United States is not a country. Never was. That's number one. From a political jurisdiction point of view, Canada, the corporation, and the U.S. corporation are actually one social political entity coming under the Circle Church and the Chancery, both being run by the Circle Church and Chancery and the Queen of England. Take that. See, once you're aware of things, I comprehend how people have different views based on what they've been told. But when you respect your intuitive mind and you do a little study, you see past there. That's why, when you see things for what they really are, a lot of people, get uncomfortable about that, but they're able to see that too if they want to. Most people don't want to see, and so they don't see because they don't want to see. But if you're talking about political jurisdictions, Canada and the U.S. corporation got the same international number. Take that as a key to what I'm saying to you. All of the front is a show to keep the masses busy while they get raped. Raped. Look up the word rape too while we're at it. Being preyed upon by the priesthood. That's P-R-E-Y.
Okay, question. What does Grand Sheik think about Nasera Jacera, how does it affect us as Moors?
This is part of the restoration. You can look at this as a reinitiation of some of the missionary work that was started by Abraham Lincoln, when he refused to take finance from the Pastor family, operatives, etc. That's a name that they're hiding behind. That's not who they are. Who took over the Yetta when they ran the Moors out of Iberia, which is now called Europe, and took over our wealth and our trade routes. And of course, those who know the history here at the Maghreb know that the American Constitution comes from Ana Confederation, i.e. Moorish tribes. When you go look up the treaties, etc., with the Ana, you will not see the word Indian. You'll see Moorish treaties. And of course, since they've been muddying all of that history and all of those documentations, so look back to the point of why even the Moorish Divine National Movement was set up, where Juali referred to the Moors to enforce that constitution, because as soon as you do, you'll start going into this information and, of course, to the treaty law, and then you start recognizing, oh, these people are frauds. Not here, on all levels. It blow your mind how much fraud you discover. Now you recognize that you got a lot of responsibility, and half the people that you're talking to think you're out to lunch. But when you start disseminating the information as it comes out and people wake up, things will start getting dismantled, because remember, most of this stuff only lives because the people believe in it. So both the financial platforms, both the genealogical platforms, the political platforms, and the economic platforms are in a state of flux and change as we speak. So Canada comes under the Queen, controlled by the Circle Church and Chancery, which you will know here as the Bar Association. The U.S. corporation, which went bankrupt again. Keep in mind, the corporation of Canada is also bankrupt, so keep that in mind too. So this is another reason why they're doing all of this pokey-wokey stuff to the people, to keep the people distracted, because they don't want the people to figure out that as far as the U.S. corporation operatives of the Chancery is concerned, they robbed all the people's funds with the hedge funds. They robbed all the people's funds with the retirement funds. And this is why they're constantly printing more fiat and giving people what they call stimulus checks. These stimulus checks are to divert the people from coming for their necks. Not next, N-E-X-T, N-E-C-K-S. As this stuff unravels, etc., and the people become aware, logically the people are going to start seeking remedy or seeking ways to get some kind of remedy to preserve everyday living, all their rights and liberties. All of this would be called estate, but they haven't been told about estates or estate law or trust law. All of these things which involve everything to feed their family, their inheritance, everything, their heritability, all of these areas. And so these areas must be exposed to our people so they can become more competent, because while the people are awakening under the energy of Uranus and Saturn, these people are trying to kill them off for real, because they know that it's you or them now. Because when these people figure out the priesthood and the politicians are actually one body politic, and they thought they were separate, they thought it was God, they call it church and state. God over here of the Jesusness, of the love of the Lord, and over here, the politicians. And you find out that all of them were club members, and that they were all operative together, past and present, to rob you. And now that your carcass is pretty much dry, they've taken up all the blood out of the turnip, they want to kill you. All these pharmaceuticals and everything that they've been doing to create diseases, 90% of all diseases is not happening in nature. They were created in a lab. that's the truth. As these people figure this out, some of them are slow, but it'll be enough going after these people. Not only will they not be able to walk the street, they'll not be able to walk the water like they've been telling the people. So look at that as the politics. And that's not opinion, that's fact, and that's ongoing. However, the sooner the people start rejecting them, the sooner the people will be liberated. So most of your remedy will come from you rejecting them, not accepting them, rejecting them.
So that's kind of that answers the question I was getting ready to share from Wayne Bay, which is how we stop these corporate ward states, or how, well, I guess they mean get them to release us from their hands.
Let's go back to the same principle. Let's go back to the principle. You have in personam jurisdiction, you have subject matter jurisdiction, you have territorial jurisdiction. The principle of rejection would involve, when you're talking metaphorically from the Bible, it would say things like Satan has no power except what you give him. Politically, that transfers into that the corporate state, the dead, that the corporation corpse, the dead or the bleeder of the dead, the feeders have no jurisdictional powers except that we keep feeding them. So the great way of bringing remedy to getting out of the clutches of Rome is rejection of Rome. And so another thing why it's important for us to go across many of these aspects is so that the people will have some insight into what has been against them. One of the things that you recognize by the people not being aware how things operate, they didn't know that these people who have been taxing them is not government. They didn't know the distinction between a republic platform that is the legitimate platform for the trade operations at the Maghreb and the demon platform, which is called the democracy set up by the Ku Klux Klan, etc. They didn't know that this is a political jurisdiction of fakery and fraud. They didn't know that these were actually the enemies in the gate. So you have generations of people being trained, paying taxes to a criminal organization of circle, church, and chancery members that they didn't even know exist. All they knew that was, oh, I'm gonna get a lawyer and an attorney. They didn't know that they were the Sadducees and the Pharisees that are talked about in the Bible. Those who've been governing you, and this is again why these so-called religious metaphors must be converted into the civic activities that have manifest on the planet. This is why we're taking a Meta-Civical Analysis of Chapter 1. That's why I've always every once in a while introduce that instead of metaphysical, metaphysics, because the people keep on thinking that Koran is not a metaphysical book. It absolutely is. They keep on looking at it like it's another religious sect. I understand that because of the training, but those who have eyes see beyond that. I just happen to see beyond that, and I'm just sharing it with you. That's all.
Another question.
And keep in mind, metaphysical hermetic principles doesn't leave anyone out. It does not recognize, position. I'm Muslim. I'm Muslim. I'm Christian. I'm Jew. That divine law don't recognize none of that. To be honest with you, really doesn't. It's sort of like arguing. I went out in the sun today. And I saw some clouds come up and it was going to rain. But because I'm Baptist, I don't need an umbrella. Well, it's fine. You get soggy like everybody else. Get over it. And the sooner we begin to come down to earth and recognize that we are all family, ultimately, and that we've been pretty much played and put against each other by the priesthood, and start learning to love instead of hate, start doing unto others as you would have them do unto yourselves, you'd be surprised how quick most of the stuff will come right. Not overnight, next minute.
For more questions. What about the that's a question. What about the Ba? Talking like the Ka and the Ba? I wonder.
The body and the creation of the body and the soul.
Mm.
Well, isn't that the chapter 1? Again, go to chapter 1, read it again. That's another reason I shared it. But it is to remove the mystery from all of these different perspectives of how we've been looking at what we've called philosophy and religion, and find that it has one source. It's just told in different language story forms, and we start thinking that we're different.
Ava says, and you were mentioning Uranus, said where Uranus is in the birth chart shows massive, unpredictable events.
Isn't that Uranus and Saturn at work?
Mm.
As a matter of fact, go look at real quick. Go look at the operations of Uranus right now, and then share something with us. Send back something.
Do what?
And you'll see what I'm talking about.
What did you say?
Go look at a quick cosmological look at operations of Uranus right now.
Me?
No, the question from the question.
Oh, they were actually making a comment. They weren't asking.
While you're answering other questions, that would, because it'll tell a lot.
Is there?
While you're doing, let me run real quick. I'll be right back. Entertain them with a question.
Okay, y'all. Brand Sheik has left us for a moment. Let me see. I can't entertain you with a question. Let me see if your questions. Direct sun. We are in the age of Aquarius. How do we get that book? I just want to take a little commercial. Ask you all to go over when this broadcast is over and subscribe to my new channel on YouTube. Dr. G is official. We want to go live. We need 1,000 subscribers in order to do the lives over there. I'm just not the pre-production broadcast person, so we'll do live videos, but I need you all. If you're not subscribed at Dr. G is official, please do so, and tell somebody else too, because you want to see what's going to come up on that channel. Really appreciate you all doing that. And our Grand Sheik has returned, but
water. It's still hot.
Y'all, he could have asked me to go get him some water, but I guess he wanted to stretch his legs. So here we are. Let me see if there are any comments. It's hot up here, y'all. Let me see. Yeah. the link for the channel is so long. That's why if you just do a search, go to YouTube and look and put in, as you see there, Dr. DRGISOFFICAL. Dr. G is official. You'll find the channel. Subscribe if you hadn't. Very many thanks and gratitude to those of you who have already done so. Over 600, and to me that's like amazing since there's no content there. But we will be going live as soon as I get to that 1,000. We're going till temperature. You're right. I do need water. I'm dehydrated. I think I'm dehydrated.
Here's the other bottle. Sip it.
Okay. Water.
I don't know about y'all, but it's warm up here. Hot.
Oh, it's kind of hot. Thank you so much, Jakari Vicaro. Thank you for subscribing. So just like he did, you can only need like 400, less than 400 of you. It's 800 plus on the chat. I know that all of you have not subscribed over there. Even if you're not going to come over there and listen, subscribe so I can start going live for the ones that will. So we need like 3 something, I believe. But appreciate you. So, hello, Thomas Day from Germany. I'm going to put the banner up right now. If you want to get the flash drive, it's scrolling across the bottom right now. Text USB to that number, and you will be sent the instructions for ordering. And you're going to have to supply a little information so we can get the shipping costs for Germany. Thank you very much. All right, let me see where we are. Thank you for all the subscribers. All right, it's 108. You think we're hot? It's 118 degrees in Arizona.
Oh wow! We thought we were catching it. You got a lot of vitamin D out there.
Oh my, 118. Texas, they said definitely hot in Texas. What is the MATD? What is the MATD? That's not Chief Nine Feathers, so I don't know what it stands for. MATD, where they do the travel. What is it? The travel card. You have to when you send an email to them, ask them to explain who they are. Hajibi Jahadi. They can tell you. I can't. They're just an advertiser. Is a hater. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We don't do that here. Let me see. We try. Okay, let's investigate. Trying to get some. Here's okay. Michael Wesley Bay. Wesley Lawrence Tunica L. Bay. Operation Uranus was the code name of the Soviet Red Army 19 to 23 November 1942 strategic operation on the eastern front of the World War II, which led to the encirclement of the German Sixth Army, the Third, whatever that means, the Third.
Yeah, even when they do military operations, a lot of times, because remember, the culture on the planet is cosmology. So even when you see them use them, then look at the energy of, you look at the energy of Uranus, what it does. But particularly from a geographical analysis, some of you, who are presenting some of those questions, look at the operative energy of Uranus at this time, and you'll understand why over the last 20 years or so, I've been emphasizing it, not neglecting the other angles of the charts, not at all.
I'm trying to think of the start. Of the planet that the sister called me, that's an astrologer, the elder sister, and explained to me about the star that's doing some stuff. It's planet, not a star. That they don't talk about. And if she's on the live, please. She knows who she is.
Well, she can share some.
I don't know if she's on the live because I don't know what whether she watches the live on when we're on live.
This is
but I'm saying that she was saying that this is so significant because what it's doing. And that's one of the things that they've done very well is to keep us from studying astrology.
This is why they've been promoting. It's what the priest jobs have been,
Yeah.
particularly in targeted neighborhoods. You know, people often don't recognize why is it and how is it that in your poorest neighborhoods, in the poorest of poor neighborhoods, they can afford to have a church on every other corner and stay open for all these decades that have been, because the people don't know that most of them are military operations. They're being funded not just by the people who are naive to the operations, but militarily, because it's a control mechanism. It is dumb diversus. You know, people look at the owners of the U.S. corporations spending millions of notes for bombs, and don't think that they would send millions of notes for bombs for mind control in the communities of targeted communities. And so they'd be thinking that the Lord in heaven is funding all of these corner institutions where you have the bar across the liquor store across the street and the church on the other corner. That just happens to be locale circumstances. It's not locale circumstances. It's political design. And our people don't get it. You know, if our people just traveled in across the country in other neighborhoods of other nationalities, you will never see that pattern. Never. It would not even be allowed. But our people don't pay attention to that. They're busy trying to survive. And they start thinking that that's what they have been calling, quote unquote, black culture. It is, but they don't know that that's a pejorative paradigm. That's not a pedigree bloodline. It's a political paradigm.
This is, I pulled that up.
We'll share.
Is this yours or is this somebody? Did you just do the intro to it? Great history. See, now if I read from this, then everybody's going to want it. We don't have it. I like this, the fact that it talks about the fact that your life unfolds just as the sun unfolds in its cycle. There's so much, the patterns, you know, the patterns go, what do you call them, from a standpoint of the microcosm to the macrocosm.
That's the law of correspondence, as above, so below.
Absolutely.
So when you're looking at the metaphors of writing, you know, you'll recognize like say for instance if people are teaching children, you know, how do you keep the children's eyes on the heavens? You talk about the angels in heavens instead of the stars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll say the Lord's in heaven instead of looking at the energies of the different planets. You pray to the heavens for an effect, so they're not looking God in for what the word means, which means to call upon, to invoke, and to pour out. So they see the ritual of the libation. They don't understand that's an action. It's not a being, you know. But as a child, that comprehension is not altogether there. But when they become older, the preacher is supposed to tell them what that is, but they haven't. They've kept them in the anthropomorphic grade and have been raping them. And my issue is the priests are the dark priests are going to get their due. They're going to reap what they've been sowing on this planet. They've been telling the people, oh, you're born in sin. You owe me all your sandwiches. Well, do you think you're going to enjoy all them sandwiches? You know, you're going to find some of these sandwiches got crazy glue on them.
I just want to bring up something. I recently was looking at something, and they were saying that they have disarmed, if you will, the moon. That the moon is not a natural phenomena, but that the moon, it's a satellite, but that it has been used as a mental sort of to control the people. So, you know, they tell you it's the ebb and flow of the tide and so forth, but the moon itself has been utilized as a method, a way of
let's look at this.
Controlling the people.
Let's look at this. We're not talking about the functional aspect of the moon. It's sort of like charging water with drowning people, and yet without it, you can't live. So let's not look at the tide operation of the moon, etc. Just like a lot of institutions, let's look at who's operating, who has that you might say a base there, and if the base is being dismantled, will the negative side still be operative? I doubt it. Just take that in consideration.
So you think we're going to see a difference in how
Duh.
people? I mean, it's just like if you didn't know all this time that you were being remotely controlled by something that had
like
been.
Biggie Small says, if you don't know, now you know. You know, don't catch a fade now.
Here's something we were talking about from Baro Ya Aqua Waba, and pardon me if I, butchered your appellation. Does the hybrid Euro am wanting to liberate themselves from Rome, reverting their estates here on American soil, claiming to be nationals, present a conflict of interest we should deal with now or later?
No, nature's deal. See, this is now we're going back to Uranus. Your answer again is Uranus.
Thank you.
Again, just to project again, but some of the things that I might say is really to pre-answer some of your questions. Because the time is limited. But as soon as you start looking up Uranus, you'll see what I'm saying. I've answered your question.
Okay. Well, we talk about, you and I have discussed the fact that, all the stuff that we watch that they do, even though it sounds great, we don't hear them correcting the fact or interjecting the fact that putting us in our rightful place and restoring our state. But so I'm wondering if the question that's being presented is, okay, so those wishing to do that, do we have to fight them?
No, you don't. See, this is the deal. If again, on Uranus again, they're going to be so busy. It's like. Let me put it another way. Someone is trying to keep your pineal gland and your medulla stem from activating, and by the nature of your development, the actual nature of your development, we're higher seeing, or what they call your third eye opens up. But the third eye still has to do with 7. That must be understood too. Because let's see, 3 times 7 is 21. 2 and 1 is 3. Still third eye. So they're trying to slow you down by blocking out the sun, aren't they? Even doing crisscross patterns now, trying to block out the sun. Let's see, since they raised so much hell here, or dug so much hell tunnels here, see if they can beat the sun. Oh, with Uranus also on their keisters. So if somebody's, is someone who's busy stealing from you and killing you on the streets and doing different things, and every time they lift up their left hand, lightning bolt hits them in the left cheek. How long do you think they're going to keep doing that? They're trying to block the sun to slow your brain down and to keep you in the lower dimensions. And the sun, we've dragged behind the sun into a thinner atmosphere, and the sun is resting and getting ready to shoot out a large charge. Meanwhile, we're out of the Pluton belt, which you have less resistance, and so the sun's going to be whiter and hotter even while sleeping. Let me ask how many of you Asiatics need suntan lotion? Oh, the Ka and the Ba. How about Kaaba? and the cube, because it also means cube, not just the spirit and the body. And the position that they said there's Mecca in with the cube there, you know, with the female cube covered up and stuff like that. That's the estimated place. That ain't really the place. It's not an insult. So some things that people thought they had covered, they ain't got covered. So it's sort of like this. The hunters being hunted and the robbers being robbed. Answer your own question. It's kind of hard for somebody breaking in your house when their house is being torn down. Don't mean they can't do some damage, but it's not going to be too much fun for them to continue this charade. Again, you watch Uranus.
Here's a question from KML. Yeah. Peace, Dr. G, Grand Sheik. Dr. G, is there any guess, I guess, to teach a bit of the horoscope, explaining the planets and movement? I mean, we certainly can get it, but you know, I'm sitting here with this in front of me, which, you know, with the
share some.
Well, interesting thing about this, you know, talks about the fact that the zodiac is broken up into 3 major areas: houses, planets, sun signs. The planets move through the 12 houses, giving off certain energies, which takes you back to the statement that the sun said, "In my father's house." Remember, there are many mansions.
Many mansions.
Which he was
the zodiac was also referred to in our culture metaphorically as the great mansion.
Right. So the planets move through 12 houses, give off certain energies. The 12 signs move through those same houses, and they channel the energy of the planets into certain traits or characteristics. The houses that the planets and signs are in determine which areas of life are affected by their influences. The most powerful influences are from here. That number goes 7 planets, the 7 ruling powers. These 7 ruling planets are the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The sun gives you life and determines your character. The moon determines your emotional self. Mercury determines your mind or intellectual self. Venus, your love nature. Mars, your energy or actions. Jupiter unfolds your gifts, and Saturn disciplines you. There's a lot more, and perhaps we'll have somebody on who's specifically an astrologer that can.
But you can just read.
I definitely will do that on Dr. G's official. But it says, here's one more thing I'll add. While the 7 ruling planets bestow their influences upon you, your individual self or body and personality is determined by your ascendant or your rising. This is a sign that is on the horizon at the time of one's birth. Hence your ascendant or beginning of travel through the zodiac in the earth plane. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are not left out. They are higher octaves of Mercury, Venus, and Mars respectively. It seems that they give you a second chance to fine-tune yourself before Jupiter bestows your gifts. Lest Saturn will make you do it all again until you get it right. Right? Pluto deals the death blow only to regenerate. So there's more. There's more, but we're not going to stay there.
And see, sort of the anthropomorphic is where you would give these energies personalities and powers, but that was for children. When you become mature and you become a man and woman, now the cosmological realities of the energies, or Ephemeraides, mathematical and energy output, and Hermetic rule output and philosophy of the Gnostic ones, is really the religion. There you go.
And Rashid Ansar, I just see your question, but I just answered it. You wanted to know what the 7 planets are. You got them. Just gave it to you. So,
and again, that's the culture. So when they say you keep the Sabbath, it's dealing with the culture, not just a knowledge of the 7 days, it's knowledge of the 7 planets and their energy output on the planet. This is why you even have your symbols of the 7 candlesticks, like in the book of Revelation. I heard one speak with a voice of many waters, and he stand among 7 golden candlesticks. You need to understand those candlesticks are presented as representative of those particular spheres or planets in this particular solar system that is part of the rulership, the energy output from the heavens.
Yeah.
And so your knowledge of that, or the knowledge of what Jesus really taught, this is again why the priesthood would never give the Moabite background of the one that they called Jesus, because his grandmother Ruth, the Moabitess, logically was a matriarch. And if you study the Moabite culture, you'd understand what those golden candlesticks are presented symbolically of. And yet people read it all the time and don't even know what they're looking at. Or the priest never tells them that 7 golden candlesticks is represent the people of the sun and moon. The people with the hair like lamb's wool. That's also called Sufi. That means it's not a Muslim sect. It means the men with the hair like lamb's wool, which is the Sabean Moors. That's all it means.
Amir El-Bey says cosmology and astrology are different. Yes.
Cosmology and astrology, yes. You can say yes and no. It's an expansion of the same philosophy. Truthfully. Astrology is just an aspect of cosmology. So when you look at the Hermetic law, you're looking at cosmology. You're looking at astrology, you're looking at cosmology.
Numerology.
So cosmology is simply a study of the cosmos, study of the universe. And so when you look at astrology, you're looking at the study of the belt, or the planets and the energies coming from the universe, etc., or dealing with the universe. So they're absolutely related. But astrology, logically, is an aspect of cosmology. And this is why, like when you see buildings, old temples, churches, mosques, and synagogues, they're laid out in an astrological format, in a cosmological format, architecturally, because it's an expression of the earth culture. That's what it really is. And you know how Dr. Nayo, this is what I keep saying. If people would look and keep this stuff simple, stop making it spooky, and like, whoa, this is really different. It's all the same stuff. It's just that they, the priesthood have divided the people against each other so they can make a living off of them and keep them in what you call a mental state of dependency, pretending that they're saving them. They need to be saved. They need to be saved from the priesthood. And they need to save themselves.
Grand Sheik and Billy Carson ask if he's willing to do a show. I'm not sure what that question means. They're wondering if would Billy Carson come on the show? I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, we know him. He's cool.
Yeah.
All right. If we, we'll talk to him.
Yeah. So, let me get over here and see if there's any other questions.
Because you already know Dr. G's show is hot. She gets called from all over the place. I'm not laughing at you, Dr. G, but like, because they putting the pressure on you. Everybody and their cousin's dog want to come on the show. Say a year or so more ago, people were underestimating you. And the other thing is that because basically you pretty much have taken a position of being laid back, but they ain't letting that happen, are they? Well, I already knew that was going to happen. I'm not laughing at you. It's just kind of humorous.
It's okay.
Because I be seeing the pressure you on. They be working you.
Okay. Here's a question from Jeff. Should we be concerned about rising crime rates in inner cities all across the country? Do you think it will be getting better, or will it only get worse? Thanks
this
for your
is
time.
what. All right. Remember that the priesthood is doing this. Most of the stuff is artificially constructed.
Right. Yes.
Most of these people are puppets being played in order to control the people's mental state and to create fear, disorder, and disruption. It's not happening. It's meaning that the crimes, for the most part, is not just there in society. It is projected like a social engineering tool, meaning it's being paid to happen for the most part.
You know, the mind is powerful. It is, if a mind is programmed, it is so very powerful. And I just think back now, all these years we've been watching, and they've been telling us like this. They tell us,
Let me tell you what they've been doing.
This is television program. Watch your TV programs. Television programming. We're programming with you, the lie that we're telling you, and the visual that we're presenting, and we're programming you with it. And they said it so they can never go back, and we can't say you lied to us, because they'll say,
Dr. G,
we told you.
And we've done this multiple times. I think, and particularly with your voice, being a woman and Karen, again, just read the philosophy page of the General Education Board, which we've been reading over and over again, coming from you, a mother, a woman. And all women look at this, and this is right back to what you're speaking on right now.
You're asking me to read that?
Yeah, I want to hear from you, because I don't want to do it. I've done it. I get bored of hearing me.
Do we have it in here?
No, so you can just open up the flash drive, just open up the study class, the General Education Board, and read the philosophy. Right on your computer. You've been giving it to people.
I'm looking at this. Excuse me, y'all. Making me open up something.
And keep in mind, and Dr. G, how some parts of these things and the dynamics that are taking place today with the socialization engineering is that redundantly we've given the people this information for years. And some of the stuff is being answered for people that are just awakening, but most of you are awake. This is old stuff to you. However, it becomes useful to sometimes remind us what we overlook because we get busy living, and forget that we have the answers to many things, etc. But again, for many others who are out there, that much of what we're doing is to slay their naivety and slay the naivety that has been promoted to the injury of people. Because many people aren't aware, on the surface of their naivety, and that not only is their naivety designed and has been designed for them, and their docility designed for them for generations, not just with the current generations that are being subject to the mind control platforms of the Circle Church and Chancery, known as the General Education Board. And of course, the animal husbandry operations that are rooted within the General Education Board, set forth for human mind control systems. So people, they are aware of the psychic attacks, etc., but not necessarily aware that they are constant and by design. And so they'll look at, TV and the different choices that producers may make of stories and movies, etc., and not recognize or not immediately recognize that all of this stuff was given a platform to be dispensed, starting with the General Education Board.
Looking for the philosophy.
So look at, so just scroll on down philosophy page.
Okay, here. Founders. Okay. In our dreams we have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now qualifies for the people who are listening. So
okay, this is the philosophy from the founders of the General Education Board, John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates, which was published in 1902. And this is what they said. In our dreams, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. The present education conventions fade from their minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply. The task we set before ourselves is very simple, as well as a very beautiful one: to train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are. So we will organize our children and teach them to do in perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way in the homes, in the shops, and on the farm.
Animal husbandry. Now, that's the philosophy page. Public knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many women, how many fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, who have stated in many public statements and have started many different small community organizations with the stated mission of the children's self-esteem, helping the children, getting better education, etc. How many of them still have been sending their children right to these hybrid Europeans and never read the philosophy page, which is available to anybody? And they told you what they were going to do to your children. And then we think we are encouraged to believe that these children are intellectually hampered by their nature or their genetics, not knowing that we entrusted them to a priesthood who has not their best interests at heart.
Right.
And they're not even trying to hide that, are they?
No.
Why? What would you believe or know or think or deduce that why they do little to hide that? Is it because that they trust and are pretty assured that these parents who claim to love their children don't read themselves?
Absolutely.
Yes. So they're confident that they've already succeeded in their job, so there's nothing to hide. Why should they hide it? The people are held as animals. They're referred to as herd. They're referred to as sheep.
That's what they've been talking about. They're going to achieve herd mentality.
Well,
herd immunity.
Is even when they start doing experiments on the people again, that duplicates the Tuskegee experiment. Do you hear anybody talking about that now? Do you hear people talking about, in that frame of mind, do you see them lining up to get poked?
Mm-hmm.
There should be absolute outrage. They should be going through for their necks. They should have not enough rope, and yet they're doing it again right in their face.
I had an experience today. I was at a new store. Met a beautiful sister that owned, a melanated sister that owns a fruit and vegetable market that they put in the hood where we've had food deserts. Mm-hmm. So to have these fresh fruits and vegetables in a wonderful, beautiful place in there. But I didn't have a mask on, right? Mm-hmm. She didn't have a mask on. At the very end, when we were finally transacting business, she was on like I don't know, it was like a PayPal type little thing. It was a small thing, and or one of those registers that's like you would get like Cash App or PayPal. It must have asked the question. She said, "You don't have to answer this," and I was paying with at this time cash. She said, "You don't have to answer this, but are you vaccinated?" Something came up on the question on the register about whether or not I was vaccinated. So I took a cue from my dear sister Jenny Pitts, and I said, wow, that second one, I said it was rough, right? And I said, looked at her like, really? Because she said, you don't have to answer this. So it wasn't her. She wasn't asking me for her.
Yeah.
They've got it embedded in, there's something in the machine. And I wasn't even using a credit card or a debit card.
It doesn't matter.
She said, you don't have to.
Grooming? Isn't that part of the grooming?
I thought these people are hell bent.
Their herd mentality.
I couldn't believe it.
Yes, you can. That's the point.
I'm like, they have it everywhere. You can't escape it.
Look for worse.
You can't escape this shit. I'm sorry.
But anyway, Dr. J, your comment on the philosophy page for Frederick T. Gates, Gates,
yeah,
and John D. Rockefeller.
Did you get a bill for that, Gates?
But it goes shows you how the paradigm continues. It wasn't even gone.
But here's the deal. But that's listen, let me go back to that, because this is what it said. We just gonna teach them what we need to keep them where we want to, and we will teach our children, in other words, to maintain. Did you see that? Did you hear that? That's what it says. It says that they're going to make sure their children know what their philosophy is, so they can keep this going. And obviously they have.
Has it been a secret that they have maintained private schools for their own?
No.
And deliberately, not because of any of it, but deliberately priced them out so that the average people can't afford.
Let me read that last thing. It says, the task we set before ourselves is very simple and as well as a very beautiful one, to train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are. They talk about in the country, in the rural. So we will organize our children and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way in the homes, in the shops, in the farm. In other words, we're going to get our children, they're going to do it better than they're going to control
perfectly imperfect.
They're going to do it better than we did it.
And then you look at your children now, right? And multiple levels, on all levels, they are what? Disrupted, disoriented, distracted, self-destructive, low quality culturally. And we talk about, we care about them. And yet we keep delivering them to the hybrid Europeans for an education, to get a degree in animal husbandry responsiveness. And what is stated in that philosophy is itself animal husbandry. And that's how they've been grooming the children. And they're counting on what? That the people won't read. It's there, but how many people are aware of it? Which means for all these years, for all these, how many generations that we've been sending children to school, we've been going to school, getting degrees.
Years ago.
We're getting degrees, etc., paying for it, coming out of these institutions in debt. And it's all animal husbandry.
And when you shared what the 8th graders do, that's why people talk about 8th grade education.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. You could even share the issue of fundamental orthology, and you recognize that most people with a so-called college education never even heard of orthology, couldn't tell you what it is. Well, yet that's, as an example, 8th grade education in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm. Orthography, right to it.
Yeah. Then you notice that test was before the General Education Board was invented for human engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So just read off some of the subject matter, Dr. Naila.
What they were studying. Okay, arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks pretty, history.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get over here. What else is there? Orthography, geography. And what else? Health. So these are the things, but
That's funny, but that's 8th grade.
yeah.
Keep that in mind.
See, so just so in case anybody wants to know, orthography is that part of grammar which treats correct spelling according to accepted usage and the way in which words are conventionally written. By extension, orthography relates to any mode or system of spelling and treats the nature and values of letters and of their combinations. Orthography is derived from the Old Moorish Latin word orthographia.
And so you can see most of the people, including the parents, are not even aware of that basic rule in grammatication. And so when you talk about, the children can't read, etc., the parents can't either and won't. But it goes to show you again how even with the operators of the Board of Education, how they contemptuously disrespect the parents, but you can see why. Parents have been cheated out of the fundamental tools.
And now what they're teaching them is totally like,
exactly.
Can you
dumb down? They're already dumbed down.
Sexuality, gender,
exactly.
decisions, and whether you want to be.
And again, what's that? Margaret Sanger Operation for Genocide. How do you do genocide? If you kill the family and kill mating, you're killing the people. See how that works? What man got a womb? You ever heard of a male having a womb? Mm-hmm. You ever heard of a man being a Stargate? Man don't have a womb. So what if you get the men disinterested in the women? How long is it going to take you to kill the people off? If his mind is messed up, he's not thinking to protect her or even to what? Mate her. So as less they have to kill, it doesn't it? It means that's less they have to kill, right? Then the women are killing off the other ones, sending them to burger joints, unknowing to them. That's the carcasses after they've been stripped of their organs. Now that's another fact that our people, the reality of the thing is far uglier than people think it is. They bleed them, i.e. they take their blood, they take their organs, then they get rid of the carcass parts that they don't use and feed it back to the people through burger joints. That's a fact. That's your priesthood for you.
Here's a question. From DD, Dr. G. Grand Sheik. So the younger generation can know where can you find documentation the Moors founded the true Republic and Constitution?
Honestly, Confederation. As a matter of fact, I think who exposed some of that? But you can do research. You do research on treaties. But I think Obama exposed that, and I think even Donald Trump signified that. And who else did? As far as the praetors are concerned, that stuff is not a secret.
I missed the comment, but I saw I think Christian Gagan said something to the effect that in spite of what the Board of Education's premise is, what they set out to do, nevertheless, we have had our scholars and philosophers
but it
and
shows
scientists.
You the strength of our people.
Yes.
It shows you the strength and the determination that even with all their efforts, they can't block out the sun. No matter how many chemtrails they use, whether it's physical or grammatical. So the chemtrails in the education system would be called connotative linguistics, which we've already been telling you about for years.
There's a question about the rise in, I saw it, no, something about the rise in interracial marriages. I know I saw something, I don't know where, what's behind it. The rise, the increase in interracial, inter-ethnic,
there's two things. Well, read out clear.
Advertising, you know,
give me some clear.
Well, they're asking to basically
clear up the question.
What's behind all what we're seeing about the.
I'll tell you. Clear the questions for the audience. Make the question clear, direct.
What do you think is behind the fact that they're showing in advertising and so forth a lot of
yes, you see
interracial couples and
yes, you see
whatever? And what do you is that again from a standpoint?
It's part of the social engineering. Number one, the hybrid knows in order for the hybrid Europeans to survive in the Uranus and Aquarian lights energies, etc., that the natural spacesuit, particularly for this corner or edge of the universe, etc., is called melanin. That's a natural spacesuit. Any being that's what you would call mutant, the sun will kill it. It is no different than if you pick up a rock and you find a plant and it has no melanin. If the chloroform does not start generating quickly, it will die. The same thing goes for the hybrid. That's a fact. That's number one. Number two, because the genetic structure is highly recessive, that means the nervous system will be attacked by the UV rays of the sun, which will also kill it and also make it short-lived. Therefore, like anything else, just like they've been doing these rituals for years, they've been stealing children to steal their melanin. Now, things are moving so fast, they're going to have to come out of the box and do what? Try to get some melanin to survive. That's number one. Number two, politically, the deal is the people are starting to figure out that these hybrids, many of them are colonists. They are not Americans, though they've been claiming to be Americans. So that political paradigm is dying. And therefore, the people will stop asking for equality in their own damn house and start asking for their house back. So therefore, it is important for them, and this is happening in many so-called corporate state marriage cases, where certain, because as a matter of fact, one I could tell you about myself, I can tell you about with somebody I know absolutely who's a Moor who happened to be in matrimony to a European sister. And the European sisters, and it's about 15 years ago or more in that area. And it's in Jersey. I'll just tell you that much. And she went for a divorce because he was not being the best guy, if you get the point. And the judge told her, and I'm telling you fact, the magistrate told her, do you know what that name you got? Are you serious? Divorce denied.
Really? Oh, you shared that?
Yes. I could tell you more, but that's other people's business. Why? Because the estate. Because that's another way that they get the estate, by marrying into it. And this is again why the Daughters of the American Revolution, that marble building you see in Washington, D.C., why do you think that is the only organization that issues citizenship manuals? Do you think that's just happenstance? No. It's European daughters who can prove that they were descended from Moorish harems. That's a fact. And that manual is used all around the world. And gives you all fundamental civics. How many of you ever heard of or seen the DAR manual? DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. Another reason. So your question is apropos, and from a political perspective, that is their motive now. If they want to survive both physically and politically, that's part of it. That's why you see what you're saying. But those who knew it was coming. Remember, Noble Drew Ali told you that the day will come that they'd be throwing their women at you. None of this stuff is news to those who know what's up.
Washington Tallman says, too late to try and amalgamate with our people. This hybrid experiment is over.
Well, doesn't Uranus and the sun say so also? Mm-hmm. Again, I said what I said for a purpose on multiple levels. But that's not to denigrate and that's not to condemn. It's just to observe. Mm-hmm. Also, for those of you who would do a further social political analysis of current events with that paradigm, that fake paradigm of color being continued, look at the different programs of the late programs where they had Asiatic Africans always doing black shows, what they call black shows. All kind of black shows.
Like the exploitation?
To promote the burial again. They don't know it's for burial.
What do you mean?
Whenever they create these shows and they talk about black this and black that, black this, and they do movies and shows, it's for burial. It's estate burial. Those who can read, is go orthography. I'm telling you. See, a being who can read can see it. A being who can't read can't see it because they don't know the etymon. They don't have a third grade etymon degree. They don't even have a third grade etymon degree. So you can put something in their face and it's a contract and they'll sign it. You tell them that you're going to kill you next week on Thursday. They say, oh, wow, I'm getting free credit. And so I'm telling you, what they said in that philosophy page, they meant it. The war is so beautiful, the attack is so effective that they call it beautiful.
Yeah. You'll do this beautiful thing.
The attack of the priest by the priesthood is so well grounded and clever and deceitful, great deceiver, that they called it beautiful. And called it a task. Beautiful task.
The task we set before ourselves is very simple as well as a very
and so that's a missionary work, isn't it? It's a task. Mm-hmm. And they have what? Achieved their ends. To a degree. But Uranus and Saturn got something else to say about that. Don't mean they didn't have fun for a while. Have fun. All they did was do what? They dug a lot of holes to bury a lot of people. They dug so many holes, they're backing into them. Put that way too, also. But you all already know what that reap what you sow means.
I don't know what they mean by looking up the McDonald's lawsuit. Mm-hmm. So they said look up the McDonald's lawsuit. But
I can't hear you.
Someone was saying to look up the McDonald's lawsuit. I don't know which lawsuit that is.
Oh, so now they know where Roe Grace's Wade has really been serving over these decades. You know, these people haven't figured out how all these burger joints have popped up on every other within within less than a mile of each other with multiple brands and how they can keep high stock. And yet children kept disappearing. And women, for the sake of, what do they call it? Women's liberation, have been helping in the genocide operation of getting rid of their own offspring, and turn around didn't know they were eating them also. Yeah, go look up that lawsuit. That's going to tell you a lot too. What we've been telling you for years that many of you probably didn't believe. Oh, by the way, they're going to be closing a lot of stores this year. Burger joints. Oh, you know that years ago, this hybrid European used to come on. Where's the beef? People didn't know that the beef was actually people. Animal husbandry. You don't know that the farm is also the community. Farming humans. This stuff is far deeper than you thought it was, and it's more uncomfortable than you thought it was. However, with temperance, take the information as you get it and turn it into energy to make this place a better place for humanity. Help those who are helping you. Is there any others?
Let's see. Nagam Bey Muxing Ali says, history says 3% of the people fight and make change. Then those who fear to fight come out. When victory is assured, we deal with fear.
It's called the hunter's monkey theory, but it ain't a theory. But I'll say this much. Within the next few years, you won't have to worry about most of these institutions that you've gotten used to coming back, because most of them have run their course and will not only not come back, you will find that most of them were not even necessary in the first place, and they were actually part of the feeder programming. Now remember what I said to you, feeder programming. They haven't told you that publicly yet, but you're going to be hearing about it probably in the next year or maybe. I don't know. Somebody will start telling you.
What was?
Feeder programs where you've been actually, for generations, been prepared as a food source on more levels than you thought. So when you read that philosophy page, you need to read it again and read between the lines.
Let me see. I got any question. Here's a question, I think. Oh, here Mo West says, I heard y'all say Mexicans are Moors, but I look more Albion.
So? On Albion's amalgamated Moors? What's up with that? Is Mexico Al-Moroccan? See, what people keep getting mixed up, they keep saying the hybrid is American, but then they turn around and act like Mexicans aren't Americans. So now they call somebody who's not American, and then try to deny the Al-Moroccan pedigree to Aboriginal people. Mexicans are Aboriginal indigenous to this land. They are Al-Moroccan. They are descendants of Moroccans. Al-Moroccan is American. Come off it. Wake up. We're still doing a wake up. This is back to our earlier conversation. we're still in the process of still waking people up. It hasn't dawned on them yet really what's going on. Some of us are still hooked into the mind control programming. What do you think Olmec, Oldemexum is? Olmec is Oldemexum. Get over it. Y'all need to grow up. But again, like I said before, this stuff's going to be happening so fast now, and so many institutions that have kept the people asleep, dumb, and distracted are being destroyed at such a rate that is being just poured out to you a little bit so you can handle it. But if you really saw what's going on behind the scene, most of you mentally wouldn't be able to handle it. That's why we've been telling you for years. Some of the things that we've been doing with you or speaking to you about are really were mental exercises to prepare you for other things that were quickly going to be coming upon you. Likewise, get prepared for some more stuff.
Sometimes, when you're going through a detox, well, most times,
that's what it is.
When you're going through a detoxification process, that Herkimer effect is you feel worse before you can feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what we're going to go for. And for some,
no, not that's
some
what we're going through.
Won't survive it. Some will break down. They think that it's the end. But
that's again part of the caring for humanity, because if there wasn't love here for humanity, this stuff would just be blown out, and half of them be already gone. Even the fact that the hybrids also know that, which is really why they accelerated their kill machines on multi-level, but it was interrupted. People need to know a lot of things that this hybrid had already planned and initiated. He was interrupted. It wasn't that it wasn't already on the path. It wasn't that it wasn't rolled out. He was interrupted. However, it's like you can do what you can to aid and to support people in upliftment, but you can't make them want to be uplifted. Because at some point, nature takes over, and nature decides whether something has respect for its origin or not. All things that have no bond or honor to their origin, nature is going to find a way to get rid of it anyway. So this is an opportunity for those, like when you look at, and this is back to where the metaphor comes into what you would call a metaphysical reality, from the above to the below. So metaphysics is actually hex alpha. Metaphysics is the metaphysical operation that people try to make you think is totally separate. That which is above, so shall it be below. Therefore, those of you who really comprehend what's up will turn your hearts back to your ancient mothers and fathers, or experience the curse that's on Midgard, and you will be reaped by your own choice. So don't blame nobody else, and don't say that you haven't been told, because you have, and don't pretend you don't comprehend or understand, because you really do. That's not a judgment. That's just observational statement. Because the Son of Righteousness has arrived. They can call justice Jesus. They can call it Muhammad. They can call it Zakrib. They can call it Musa. Call it what you will. It's a recurring energy.
Roxy, Roxy, forgive me, I can't get all your application in, wants to know where we can get a DAR manual. I know you can't really, they're not readily available, or are they two people, or are they? I know you had one.
Most people who've been traveling, if you know some people that come from other political jurisdictions, the test that they take when they get a green card is from a DAR manual. Just in case you didn't know that. Now, and because, but what they've done for the most part, when they have people coming from different areas, they will do a verbal civic test and questioning, etc. That's because most of the government platforms have been corrupted and colored and are prima facie. But the Daughters of American Revolution is Washington, D.C., is the Dar Manual. And as a matter of fact, Brother Lamont has been actually teaching constitutional enforcement classes via the Dar Manual. And of course, you already know I gave Tamara Dar
Right.
Manual for her to share it with people. It's sort of like Dar Manuals should be in all your little civic groups because that's standard principles of citizenship and national principles. Universal, coming from Muslim law. And for those who are less familiar, Dolly Madison, you'll see her clothes. They even have her clothes on display, including her turban at Washington, D.C. It's never been a secret. You can't get in there now because they're locking that stuff down. Because that whole foreign territory is being fenced in.
It's true. It's sad.
It's a political territorial issue. Now you're talking about territorial jurisdiction for absolute real. Now see how as things have passed, they're being forced to do certain things that are very uncomfortable for the public, but the general public still have no idea what's really going on, and yet it's blatantly in their faces, including the POW wired inward arch fencing with barbed wire around the White House, and people still ain't caught on what the signal is.
Here's a question, though. Bantu Mandigo said, well, isn't Black Law's dictionary dead?
Say it again?
Asking if Black's Law dictionary is dead or stating, isn't it dead?
Dead.
I don't know what they mean by that.
I don't know.
Or are they saying like of no use?
Henry Campbell Black happens to be a translator, so he's one of the major author translators. But the principles of jurisprudence are ancient and modern. So I don't comprehend the question.
It's not. Can Aduke ask? Can they make Washington D.C. a state?
No, it's a territory under Rome, under the Roman jurisdiction. From a political perspective, it would be called a foreign territorial outpost. That's a political fact.
He says that's what it's going to become?
No, that's what it is, and that's what it's been. That's what it was. Right now, it's in what you call war powers captivity. That's what defense represents. And that's what defense actually is, not so much what it represents. That means there's an act of war going on. The public's not being told bluntly what's going on. I'm telling you what's happening. Part of what's happening. I haven't told you all that's happening. I told you part. This is again why people at Washington that are domiciled in that area couldn't vote, because it's not a part of the legitimate republic union of states or states united. So they are by fact not in any form what you would call citizens of the republic. They actually would be under the jurisdictional powers of Rome.
Here's a question. Do we have two presidents now?
You got a president for the republic, which is being reinstated, which is Nassar and Gassar that you talked about earlier, and his name is Donald Trump. And you have a president of the failed and bankrupt foreign corporation under war powers operations under military guard known as Joseph Biden, in a cloned protege puppet.
Okay. Jeff says, I recently heard a theory that wicked Moors who never fell from power are really running the world from behind the scenes using the hybrid Europeans as a front. Is there any truth to this?
There's always some truth to that. Not total, but it is some truth. Then you also have some, what you would say, off Midgard worlders who have been part of this crap.
Hmm. Someone wanted to know, is the White House shut down?
Like, really?
Sherman Story
It's
says,
under war powers and military operations under war powers. It's just not being told in the mainstream media, which you already understand, because the dark priesthood still controls the mainstream media.
Charmaine Stewart says the post office has POW flags at half mast.
Distinguishing
Why?
Postal Service. Keep that in mind.
Why? The question was, why?
Why they have not what?
Why do they have POW flags at half mast?
Again, war powers under military operations. For many of you, how many of you have noticed that many of your local post offices, that when you went there to get money orders, that they did not issue money orders and they sent you to a main office? Did any of you pay attention to that? They're not allowed to take any finance for no money orders. I'm just throwing something out there for you to look at.
We're at the
Again, things are occurring right in front of the people, but the people are being distracted by other things. You know what I mean, Dr. J?
Yes. I do know. I know every now and then we look at mainstream on YouTube just to see what narrative they're putting out. Just like we looked at that and picked out the obvious. Like that's not logical. You know, it's not that lax. And even the people on guard, they look like they look like rent-a-cops or not cops, but secret
Well,
and put them in service.
You notice that none of them are wearing uniforms with
they're slovenly
flags on it,
and they're slovenly looking. They look like if they had to run somewhere, they couldn't run. You know, to the
now you already know. You know what it is, and you know what it was before it even became public.
It's a joke.
The deal of it is, much of this stuff is a show for the public to keep you preoccupied on two fronts. One, to limit what you call disruption, social disruption, and two, while things are being put in place to take the place of some of these institutions that will be dismantled in both the educational format and in the economic format. So keep that in mind, you all. But anyway, I appreciate you all sharing with us again, and also recognize why I chose the title, A Meta-Civical Analysis of Chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Koran, because it is metaphysical, i.e. metaphysical, etc. So anyway, so please support the House of Reawakening Minds. You can do that support via PayPal. You can do that support via Cash App or checks and money orders, and they will be payable to the House of Reawakening Minds and sent to 602 Vanderbilt Avenue, Wilmington, Delaware, Republic, 19802. So thank you very much for sharing with us, etc. And also for those of you, make sure that you subscribe, help you to subscribe, and So Dr. G's, you already know, has a new YouTube channel. It's called Dr. G's Official.
Dr. G is official.
Dr. G is official. So that's capital DR, capital GIS, capital OFFICIAL. So that's YouTube requires at least 1,000 subscribers in order for the channel to go live. And so go and subscribe and help that out, because she's going to be bringing a lot of. We have actually a lot of people calling, even from other hot channels, that are going to come on Dr. G's, and so she's setting up this channel to make that available to you. And so subscribe, and it'll be linked down at the bottom. So check out on your screen.
You just have to
and look at that link. And so subscribe to Dr. G's new YouTube channel. Dr. G is official, and that's it in one word, etc. And subscribe. And thank you for your support for the House of Reawakening Minds. And so many of you from around the world have been supporting, and we appreciate you. And many of you have come on and have not. We appreciate you too. And trust and hope that we've done some good to help in the great missionary work of uplifting fallen humanity. And with that, I'll say have a grand evening.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Deeper and deeper I go. I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.